Picture a millionaire. Who do you see? A businessman in a fancy suit? A spoiled kid with rich parents? That Lambo guy on Instagram? Well, it turns out the average millionaire is nothing like that. Over my 18 years in finance, both on Wall Street and here in Europe, I have worked with many millionaires. And in this video, I will overturn 6 myths about millionaires. Because if you believe these myths, building your own personal wealth could be much harder than it needs to be. To explain myth number 1, let me quote the popular YouTuber Gary Stevenson. When asked how young people can get rich today, here's what he said.
There's basically one really good method for getting rich in today's society. It's almost foolproof. Have a rich dad.
This sounds believable, right? I mean, we've all heard that wealth inequality is growing. As older people accumulate more and more wealth, that leaves less for the rest of us, unless you're one of their children. But do you actually need rich parents to become wealthy here in Europe? I mean, to be sure, it helps. The most detailed study on this topic that I've found comes from the Institute for New Economic Thinking at the Oxford Martin School. They published a report which showed that if you look at the top 1% of wealthy families in Britain and other European countries, more than half of them received some inheritance or gifts. The percentage ranged from 54% of families in Italy to 72% in France. But you have to keep in mind 2 things. First, many of these inheritances or gifts would have been quite small. And second, this still leaves anywhere between 30 to 50% of rich families that did not receive any inheritance or gift. So, in short, rich parents help, but you don't need rich parents in order to become wealthy. Now, of course, you could argue that this is changing because wealth concentration is going up in many European countries, and certainly this is a problem. But it's actually not as bad a problem as you might think. We are not heading to a world where only a few rich families own everything and nobody else can build wealth, because we've got centuries of data that show that inherited wealth does not last. As Robert Arnott of Research Affiliates says, the rich are getting richer, vastly so, but it's never the same people for long. After a fortune is first built, the rich often get relentlessly and inexorably poorer. So why does this happen? Well, first of all, because wealthy people have kids, and then their kids have kids, and the same limited amount of wealth gets spent by more and more people. And second, because people who become wealthy are usually above average in their ability to make money and save and budget, but typically their kids and grandkids are not above average. So they spend too much, they make poor investment choices, they're not nearly as successful in their careers or businesses, and the wealth disappears. The second myth that I want to address is the myth of the online millionaire. You can hardly go on the internet these days without seeing these stories.
Just 10 years ago, I was broke, living in a small apartment with a broken down car, eating instant noodles. But thanks to hard work and the 5 principles you can learn in my course, the link is in the description, I'm now a 7-figure entrepreneur at age 30.
And then there are pictures of Lambos and private jets and beautiful girlfriends. Well, here's the reality. The Lambos and private jets are often rented just for the photo shoot. In some cases, even the girlfriends are paid models. And very few of those 30-year-old influencers are actual millionaires. The reality is that making money online is not that easy. I've had an online business for a long time. I got my own 2 Comma Club award years ago. That's when I first generated $1 million in revenue. I've been in various masterminds and groups with other online business owners. And I can tell you that many so-called 7-figure entrepreneurs aren't even making 100,000 euros per year after taxes. You see, the millions that everybody boasts about on Instagram are revenue figures. But online businesses come with big expenses. The biggest one is ad costs. Running ads on Facebook or YouTube is really expensive. But then you've got staff costs. You've got to hire video editors and salespeople and administrative assistants. And finally, you've got to cover taxes. Everything from VAT and sales tax to payroll tax to corporate income tax and your own personal income tax. A highly successful online business owner might make low to mid 6 figures, but most influencers make far less if they earn a profit at all. Next up, we've got the myth of the young millionaire. On social media, it can feel like if you're not wealthy by 30 or 40, you have failed. But that is delusional, because building wealth takes time. If you look at the data, the average millionaire globally is not 25. not 35, not even 45. The average millionaire is 57 years old, and the average multi-millionaire is 60. It takes most people decades of hard work at their job or business to reach this milestone. Now, are there exceptions? Of course, you've got successful sports people or artists or entrepreneurs who become wealthy much earlier. I myself became a millionaire at 37 through a combination of investing and entrepreneurship and also some good luck. I do also know a few young people who became millionaires through YouTube or Instagram, but they are the exception, not the rule. Okay, now it's time for the fourth myth. It's probably the most damaging one, because if you believe it, you will find it almost impossible to build wealth. But before I explain it, here's this. If you live in Europe, building wealth can be tricky. Nobody teaches you about money or investing at home or in school. And you've got practical obstacles like low salaries or taxes or bureaucracy. Well, that's exactly why I write a newsletter for everybody in Europe who wants to build wealth through saving and investing. If you'd like to join over 100,000 readers in 34 European countries, just follow the link in the description to sign up. And I promise you, I'm not going to send you any get-rich-quick tips. All right, to explain the fourth myth about millionaires, let me go back 30 years. I was sitting in the kitchen as a teenager, eating lunch with my mom and grandma, and they started talking about the price of milk and bread and where you could buy the cheapest sugar. I listened for a while until I just couldn't stand it. I said, "How can you talk about this nonsense? Life is so short. Why are you wasting it talking about the price of sugar?" Now, to be clear, I'm not proud of what I said. I was a cocky teenager. I didn't have to feed a family. But it actually took me years to fully understand how damaging my attitude was. Because around 10 years later, I got my first job on Wall Street, and for the first time in my life, I had money. I was making over $100,000 per year. And my first priority was to stop being cheap. I just loved going shopping and eating at fancy restaurants and not worrying about the price. I was on Wall Street and I was gonna be rich. Well, over the next 4 years, I earned more than $500,000. But at the end of this period, I had virtually zero savings. I had completely missed a tremendous opportunity to build significant wealth while I was young. So here's the fourth myth about millionaires that you need to absolutely eliminate from your mind. Millionaires are high spenders who live flashy lifestyles, drive fancy cars, and take expensive vacations. The reality is simple. Your wealth is the money that you do not spend. It is hard to become a millionaire, and it's impossible to stay one if you don't control your spending. Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean that you have to clip coupons or count pennies all your life. Back when my wife and I finally got serious about building wealth, we spent some years living very cheap and saving every euro. Today, we live in a beautiful house, our kids go to private schools, we travel a lot. I mean, as your income and wealth rises, you can spend a lot more. That said, I still make sure that I spend less than my income, and I never take out more than 3 to 4% of my portfolio in any given year, because I know that wealthy people who don't control their spending don't stay wealthy. All right, now it's time for myth number 5. To illustrate this myth, imagine that you meet somebody who is really rich. This guy travels the world, has a yacht and a private jet and all the coolest toys. So you ask him, "How did you make your money?" And he says, "Oh, it's easy. Anybody can do it. Just buy a lottery ticket every week." Would you copy this strategy? Of course not. If you did, you would have fallen for survivorship bias. This means basing your conclusions on the one person who got lucky as opposed to the millions who did the same thing and got nothing. But survivorship bias is only obvious with the lottery. It is much harder to spot when it comes to other areas like business. Imagine that a millionaire businessman tells you, all you need to do is pick a niche, work hard, and take risks. Do that and you will build wealth. Is this good advice? Maybe it is. But it actually ignores the thousands of other entrepreneurs who picked a niche and worked hard and took risks and ended up going broke. In the UK, less than 40% of businesses survive 5 years, and the data is virtually the same for Germany. Of the businesses that survive, most never become highly successful. I mean, the median profit for small and medium enterprises in the UK is around £13,000 per year. If you add a typical manager salary of £30,000 to £50,000 per year, you've got a decent income, but in many cases it is less than what the owner could have made in a corporate job. So the fifth myth that I want to address is that you need to build a successful business to become wealthy. Now, don't get me wrong. wrong. I love business. It can be a great way to build wealth. If you are an expert in your area, if you've got years of experience, if you've got a good network of contacts and some basic skills in sales and marketing and accounting, by all means, start a company. But if you don't want to become an entrepreneur, you don't have to. When Dave Ramsey surveyed 10,000 American millionaires, the majority were not business owners. Most had regular jobs with a decent salary. They were engineers, teachers, doctors, and lawyers, and they got wealthy through saving and investing. Which brings us to the sixth myth, which is something that I once believed myself. You see, I grew up in Eastern Europe in a family of teachers. Nobody had money, nobody knew anything about investing. So when I first landed on Wall Street in 2007, I thought I was about to learn the secret investing strategies that are used by the smartest people in the world. But much to my disappointment, it turned out that secret investment strategies are mostly a myth. I did meet many traders who talked like they had some secret strategy, but if you followed their careers long enough, sooner or later, most of them blew up and lost money. I discovered that the most reliable way to make money on Wall Street is to manage money for clients and take a percentage. But when it comes to their personal portfolios, the smartest people in finance usually don't rely on fancy strategies. They invest most of their own money in simple, diversified, low-cost investments. Now, of course, I'm talking about ETFs and index funds. There's a reason even Warren Buffett, the most famous investor in the world, recommends that after he passes away, his wealth be invested in index funds. Today, when I take dividends from my businesses, I don't put them into advanced Wall Street strategies. I buy a simple ETF portfolio and let my money grow over time. If you live in Europe and you're thinking about investing, you may already have heard about ETFs and index funds, but it's possible that you don't know how they work exactly or why they get such good results. If so, watch this video next, because I put together the ultimate guide to ETF investing for beginners who live in Europe.